So the World Cup is really important economically, as we could tell, but it's also important philanthropically. French star Kylian Mbappe donates the entirety of his World Cup earnings to a child's association, a charity aimed at organizing sports activities for children with disabilities. He earns about £17,000 per game with bonuses added, but he's a patron of the association. He's donating anything he earns. The donation includes a reported £265,000 bonus the star is in line to earn should France win the tournament. His generosity has caused some of his fellow Frenchmen to follow suit. Samuel Umtiti emphasizing that representing the national team had nothing to do with money. Now that France has earned a spot in the World Cup semis, Mbappe's other player donations will only increase. Good for the World Cup. And now that soccer basically has captured center stage around the world, and by the way, America, even though we didn't qualify the second week, third week, fourth week, everybody excited. But the big things are on the horizon for D.C. United. Former Man U player and England international Wayne Rooney makes his MLS debut with the opening of Audi Field on July 14th. D.C. United, intent on ushering in a new era of success after on- and off-field performance, has continued to drop over the past years. The GM and VP of soccer operations for D.C. United, David Casper, noted that the United's long-term strategy always to pair the stadium with new elite arrivals or arrival partners. The first meeting they had with ownership back in 2012, he said, was suggesting the number one priority was to build a stadium, and once we did that, going to build world-class talent. One of the main reasons that Rooney's signing worked out so well for the club, Rooney's distaste for cities like L.A. and New York, noting that they're both too hectic like London, Rooney says. And while Rooney might change his mind about D.C. after a few bouts with Beltway traffic, it's clear that U.S. capital is on a sports high this year after the Stanley Cup and the MLB All-Star Game. We'll get to that in a minute. But before we leave the World Cup ideas of mega events, the IOC, not to go this business cycle without their input, agreed to commit nearly $1 billion to host the 2026 games as part of its new host city contract operations requirement. IOC making good on its commitment to increase transparency and reforms for all future events. In addition to the estimated $925 million given to the host 2026 Olympic city, there'll be another $500 million in potential savings for future hosts of the Olympics and Paralympic Winter Games. Calgary, one of the leading candidates to land the hosting rights for 2026, has estimated the cost of hosting the mega event at $4.5 billion Canadian, with games revenues covering about half the cost. In comparison, hosting the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver cost the Western Canadian city about $7.7 billion Canadian. IOC's commitment to deliver on this promise showed the organization's true intent in ensuring that hosting the games is not an undue financial strain for the city. Well, let's talk about the other big event in Washington, the All-Star Game, and what it has long-term and short-term. Well, first of all, MLB on pace to average fewer than 30,000 fans per season for the first time since 2003 as the league turns toward the second half of the season. Warm weather finally here, but yet the league hoping to turn the trend around with rainouts that plagued the first half of the season as well. Derek Jeter's Miami Marlins tallied the worst overall attendance through the first half of the season, drawing a mere 9,900 fans per game on average, down an astounding 52.3% from last year's 20,000. The leading MLB, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Cardinals, while the NL Central leading Brewers have drawn 21% more than last year. Likely won't be addressed head-on during Commissioner Manfred's annual address at the MLB All-Star Game this next week. You can bet it'll be a constant topic at all the business meetings surrounding the All-Star break. Speaking of All-Star break, a few philanthropic issues that are very important. First, on the minor league level, more than philanthropy, the business. Strategic league partners of minor league baseball come together this week in Columbus during their AAA All-Star Game to provide a true first-hand MLB All-Star experience. More than 70 industry execs and league partners will experience firsthand what it means to be an MLB All-Star, minor league or major league. The event will be filled with unique partner experiences, including official MLB contracts being signed, minor league, and the meaningful business-driving events with key decision-makers throughout minor league baseball. In addition, the summit will provide attendees an inside look into minor league baseball's growth strategies while addressing key relevant topics throughout the industry, including leveraging emerging technology to enhance the fan experience, prioritizing multicultural marketing initiatives to drive the next-gen fandom, and maximizing compelling content to meet the ever-evolving landscape. I'm honored to be involved in that. It's certainly a major business move for minor league baseball. What about Major League Baseball and philanthropy? To prevent summer slide, online education leader EverFi activates with MLB and Summer Slugger. EverFi will man a Summer Slugger booth at the MLB All-Star Fan Fest at the National Convention Center in D.C. next week, and will also participate in National Summer Learning Day on July 12th. Players from the San Diego Padres, Baltimore Orioles, and others will meet Summer Slugger participants at local libraries on those days. In Baltimore, the Orioles celebrate National Summer Slugger Learning Day, kicking off their second season with their Summer Slugger program, the club's baseball-themed educational course. Summer Slugger, a digital course that reinforces foundational math and literacy skills with students, helping to prevent the summer slide and re-engaging students at the start of the school year. Through the Orioles Employee Volunteer Program presented by Bank of America, members of the club's front office will visit the library to play math and reading games with both local patrons and others. Volunteers from the Orioles will be in attendance along with the Oriole Bird. Events such as this give off-field substance to all-star games and on-field other events and help cement sports franchises and their partners' leadership and roles in their given communities. We can't wait for the All-Star game, by the way, and that's really, really important. But one of the big issues that dominates the industry today is the E-League and esports. Compelling statistic. Never saw this before. Goldman Sachs projecting that esports viewership will rival that of the NFL by 2022. A published note from Goldman Sachs called for esports viewership to outdraw Major League Baseball and the National Hockey League in 2018, while booming up to 276 million viewers in 5 years. The projected 14% year-over-year growth has been fueled by increasing prize pools, the ubiquity of live streaming, and the improved infrastructure for pro sports leagues. The analysts who wrote the report further projected total esports monetization to reach $3 billion over the same period. Esports is currently a boom phase as the game Fortnite continues to dominate the global industry. The $100 million prize pool announced recently for Fortnite is nearly the size of the entire esport prize pool in 2017. It is a tremendous, compelling number. And by the way, it gets even bigger. E-League hosts the eSport tournament for Cause, Turner and IMG, hosting the Street Fighter V Invitational, 2018 Celebrity Showdown, for the second time. Shaquille O'Neal, Jimmy Rollins, Baron Davis, playing for all of their variety of sources and causes. They will raise a tremendous amount of money for charity and others. By the way, the overall business, TBS with over 7 million viewers, Twitch 28 million hours, 228 million hours versus 65,000 on ESPN, on and on. But politicians hadn't gotten it. Jeff Williams, the mayor of Arlington, Texas, previously known as the city that built the Globe Life Park for the Rangers, the next one for the Rangers, AT&T Stadium for the Cowboys. Now they're building and have built an e-sport stadium. And for a town of 375,000, it is quite compelling. Jeff Williams, the mayor of Arlington, knows what esports is about and what its potential is. Here's Jeff Williams now. Professor Rick Horrow, beyond the scoreboard, inside the boardroom. We're here at the U.S. Conference of Mayors in Boston, Marty Walsh's conference. We talk about innovative public-private partnerships, and the sports piece doesn't dominate the landscape, but it is in the landscape, and we have a combination of sports and entrepreneurialism. How do you take esports and turn it into a viable economic engine in a city? Well, Mayor Jeff Williams has one of the answers. How are you?
Doing great, Rick. Good to be here today.
Appreciate it. So, first of all, talk a little bit about the strides that Arlington, Texas has made before we even get into esports, kind of like the Rangers and the Cowboys, et cetera. You are known as a center of facility development in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Well, we are, Rick. It's been an exciting time. We are home to the Dallas Cowboys, home to the Texas Rangers, and more importantly, home to AT&T Stadium, which has become the world's greatest special event center. And the Washington Post has called Arlington the sports capital of the nation, as we've hosted the Super Bowl, the World Series, Major League Baseball All-Star Game, NBA All-Star Game, the Final Four, National College Football Championship. I could go on and on. Probably one of the wildest was the WrestleMania, the Super Bowl of wrestling.
Well, and obviously there are sports and entertainment economic impacts attached to all that, and now you're into building a new public-private partnership facility for the Texas Rangers. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, what an opportunity here. In the surveys that Major League Baseball and the Rangers had done, they saw there was great opportunity to grow baseball with the millennials in North Texas if they would build a retractable roof stadium that would help the climate, because we have hot summers there, but also the fact that we could have other special events there year-round. And what an opportunity that is. In fact, Jerry Jones of the Cowboys was one of the first to congratulate us when we were building our new 40,000-seat special event center beside the greatest special event center there at AT&T Stadium.
Let's talk about one of the most novel ideas we've had in years, and I must confess, even though I'm a sports business guy, my cynicism abounded when we talked about esports being a sport. But now we understand that leagues are drafting teams, they're buying teams, et cetera, but the facility aspect of it is something entirely new for a public-private partnership. Talk about what you're doing in that space.
Yes, it is. What an opportunity we had. We actually had New York University study what we should go into next in sports. Here came esports. Well, the time is now. The need is here. And in fact, companies are spending millions of dollars to advertise and sponsor. So consequently, there are no esports stadiums in the center of the country, and we have one in Vegas and one in L.A., so it makes sense with us there in Arlington, right at the gateway to DFW Airport, to be building an esports stadium that is going to be state-of-the-art, and of course we're in Texas. It's going to be the biggest and best.
Describe what it is for people that can't get their hands around what an esports stadium looks like.
Well, first of all, it centers around huge digital screens that have the capability to be able to focus in on the individual player and the game itself. So very high-tech digital screens. Then you add in surround sound, you add in incredible lighting, and you then also feature the opportunity for all of the audience to be able to tap in through Wi-Fi to their favorite players, but then it goes out to millions. But then also, let's talk about adding luxury suites around the edge, just like our other sports, and the VIP packages, and to actually experience it, to see the behind-the-scenes workings of what goes into an esports athlete.
So obviously you are in charge of a significant public trust. You have the legacy of public-private partnerships with sports as an economic engine, but you're also the trustee of a substantial amount of public dollars as well. How do you view the whole world of public investment in sports facilities, and what would you say to somebody who said, let's not spend money on sports, let's spend it on something else?
Well, it's very important now, and especially in our communities, that we do invest. We don't bury the tax dollar. We invest it so that we can multiply it, so that $1 turns into $3 or $4 we have to spend to prepare our streets and take care of public safety. Well, in Arlington, Texas, we have had decades of experience of making money on sports. And consequently, our city, we have some of the lowest property and sales taxes of anywhere in the country because of the return that we have. So this made sense for us because we do know how to partner and work. And coincidentally, we had 4 of our local sports team owners to buy esports franchises. We had the Cowboys and the Joneses. We had 2 of the Ranger owners to each buy a team, and Mark Cuban with the Mavericks bought a team.
So the interesting piece, obviously, is that your existing owners believe in the future of esports. But as the trustee of the public dollars that go to a facility like this, the predictions of success for esports, what basically sold you on the sport as a sport?
Rick, that's a great question because we did a pro forma. We actually went through and looked at what are the sources of revenue that could take place here. And of course, the obvious one is you have the space rental to the esports tournaments. You have the ticket sales that are going on. Then you also have the advertiser and sponsorship dollars, but then also the opportunity through the networks of live streaming and TV producing. And it's pretty amazing. Who thought people would be watching poker on TV? And now we see, conversely, the world of gaming is so much more engaging. And then we also see the invention of virtual reality, an augmented reality, and the climb to that. That's a part of our tourism. Right now, go to the Harry Potter world, and you see very much of that. So it is, and then when you see the amount of money that's being expended by great corporations because they want to advertise to the millennials, and so they're advertising with esports, that literally has made up hundreds of millions of dollars now in this industry. It also has caused very successful business people to buy these teams. Well, for us, when we looked at all the opportunity to share in each of that, and literally just remodeling an existing space into something that we can use for a lot of different things, even beyond esports, it was a no-brainer, and we have moved quickly.
You have absolutely moved quickly, and therefore the question about competitive landscape. Cities are in an arms race for teams and for mega events. What is the competitive landscape relative to esports tournaments?
Well, I think it's going to be very competitive, and that's why we wanted to move and be one of the first out of the gate and establish ourselves as a leader in esports. So consequently, we are remodeling an existing space. We have done all of our homework and moved forward here because we plan on having tournaments this November and to go ahead and start this November and enter into that landscape because, as I mentioned earlier, and you know this, Rick, the demand is there as we speak.
Yeah, which is always important to understand that the place is going to be full on day one or rentable on day one. What are your key, and now that you are a world-renowned student on the esports industry, what are the key economic drivers that you look at to evaluate the future of the sport? Is it television? Is it what are some of the other factors?
Well, it's interesting because of our experience and what we've seen in baseball and football in particular. The TV networking and the live streaming, I think, are the key for this to become a huge sport, even more so than what it is now. And we've seen the growth of baseball and football has been key to TV. TV has driven it. Well, I think we need to go a little bit further, and if you'll study a little bit about Twitch and see that live streaming and the opportunity to be going through different networks is phenomenal. So that is where the money could just exponentially grow.
As a fan, assume you've got to be a sports fan. You can't live in Arlington, Texas without being a sports fan. How do you cross the Rubicon? Did you go to an event? Did you watch it on TV? Did you see one of those original Turner broadcasts and say, hey, this isn't sports, but at the end it was? What kind of turned you on about this?
Well, myself, I've been a big fan of video games, but yet I had to be convinced this was a great business. So, yes, we studied hard, and yes, I've gone on the internet, I've watched the games themselves, and then we happen to have the National College Champion of esports in our city for colleges, and it's the University of Texas at Arlington. They won this year. And to see the excitement there, and here's a side benefit, Rick, that I think is really important. We will be able to attract and to keep a lot of our millennials in town because of the cool factor of esports.
Did UTA win the tournament because they knew that they were going to have a facility at home, or was it the other way around?
Now, I believe it was the other way around. It was interesting how that was an interesting coincidence because we had all of our local sports franchise owners to buy these teams, and then we had this report coming out from New York University that had studied it for us, and then we turn around and, my goodness, one of the leaders in esports is University of Texas at Arlington, and then take it one step further. These kids are going to be getting full scholarships. It is going to become an NCAA sport, and so that's another sign of the growth of esports.
How hard was it to sell politically, your council, a bunch of naysayers, the media, the newspapers, about this as being not only a sport, but a good public-private investment in the business?
Well, it was very interesting. Needless to say, I have a council that has several retired people, older people, very conservative business people, but however, when they were able to study it themselves and look at the numbers and then look at the popularity of it, it went quick. But however, the study and homework had to be done first. But after that happened, they are all in. And I can tell you the enthusiasm for esports. It's amazing when I go around, here we are home to the Cowboys, home to the Rangers, and yet everywhere I go, people want to talk about esports. That's the topic of conversation these days.
And this is international broadcast, international distribution. One of the other beauties of this, I think, is because of the way media travels these days, the tournaments don't just have to be localized to North America. You can be a destination around the world as well?
Yes, the video gaming has been around a long time, in fact, several decades. And so consequently, there are video game participants and fans already established around the world, not just here in the U.S., so they're all ready to go. And then the communication, because right now, a gamer in Arlington, Texas may be playing someone in Thailand. It's an amazing thing.
The Supreme Court has allowed all states to enter the feeding frenzy of organized gambling. Some states are doing it quicker than others. Some states want to take a piece for infrastructure. Almost everybody does. Some teams and leagues want to get in the middle of that. Somewhat related, but somewhat separate too. Where does that all fit in your world, and how do you feel about that?
Well, we're studying again. We have a change now in the opportunity here for sports gambling and how it is and what it is. And then we even hear the term of an integrity fee potentially being charged by the professional sports franchises. So don't have an answer yet, Rick, because we need to study more, but we are studying it.
So is everybody else in the world, trying to figure out how to deal with that. The future question as well about the Olympics, it used to be the conversation about this wasn't a sport. Now, Thomas Bach, the head of the Olympic Committee, and others are saying we need to study it as well. As long as we don't have violent games in the middle of it, we might be interested in doing it ourselves. How do you see that all playing out?
Well, that was a real revelation for me to see that these people really are athletes that are participating in these sports. They have nutritionists, they have trainers, they are being put through both rigorous physical and mental competitions. So I think it's very worthy of an Olympic sport.
So bottom line is, next 5 years, City of Arlington, where does this facility go? What does it look like? What kind of events are happening, and the economics of it? Talk about that.
Well, imagine a world event of esports in which we have our esports stadium generated. We have our 40,000-seat new Texas Rangers ballpark with a huge 200-foot screen that we see demonstrations taking place and tournaments taking place there, and the big kahuna, AT&T Stadium, having all of that energized, all for esports. And in fact, if you see a video game on a 60-yard by 70-foot tall screen, it is a sight to behold, and I've seen that in AT&T Stadium, and it could be a spectacular world esports event in Arlington, Texas.
Problem with Mayor Jeff Williams is that he's not passionate enough about what he speaks about. I'm moving from Jupiter, Florida today to move to Arlington just so I can support this project. Jeff Williams, thank you very much.
Thank you,
really
Rick. Appreciate it.
Well, Jeff Williams certainly has some perspective, and you require vision to be the leader of a city like Arlington. The economic impact is obvious, as he told you. Look for him and look for them to be front and center in the esports future in the coming years. Other issues dominate. We just had the major event in Charlotte for July 4th weekend, but International Speedway Corp has announced its financial report for Q2, covering March through May for NASCAR, a 10% drop in admissions revenue. Phoenix, Fontana, Martinsville, Richmond, Talladega, and Kansas, the drop about 6.3% from the December and May period. Overall revenues for ISC during those months up 2.3%, but up 22% from the same period in 2007. The bottom line is that new blood will clearly benefit this old sport, and NASCAR execs continue to put their faith in a young crop of new drivers alongside sponsor and fan experience initiatives. Same time of year, let's talk tennis. Wimbledon ends. Roger Federer, now the face of Uniqlo, signing a massive 10-year endorsement deal with the company and leaving Nike after 21 years, more than $300 million. He is going to be part of this wearing Uniqlo gear, but wearing Nike shoes. The Japanese company doesn't have a footwear line company. Uniqlo also expected to acquire the rights to the RF logo and the from Nike going forward. Federer joins Japanese tennis player Kei Nishikori, Australian golfer Adam Scott as the company's biggest sports sponsors. The $30 million per year deal comes as a huge spike from the $10 million per year that Nike paid Fed over the last 2 decades. Despite turning 37 next month, Uniqlo will be paying the 20-time Grand Slam champion to be a global brand ambassador long after he retires from professional tennis. The deal clearly rockets Federer into even more rarefied air, entering a sports sponsorship pantheon populated by the likes of Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and David Beckham. Finally, let's talk NBA. The NBA never sleeps. Demand is high for a LeBron jersey. Signing with the Lakers expected to boost Nike retail sales, as the company is both the league's official jersey manufacturer and the James footwear outfitter. No player sold more basketball sneakers in 2017 than LeBron, a figure that includes sales of both his signature line, LeBron 15, and Soldier Series. However, the move is expected to have the biggest impact on jersey sales, not footwear. Fanatics reported that pre-sales orders rose 600% in the first 3 hours following James' announcement relative to his return from Miami to Cleveland in 2014. And it should be noted, despite the assumption that James would be leaving at the end of the season, his jersey was the second best-selling in the NBA during the postseason, behind the Warriors and Steph Curry. And then Lakers jersey patch deal with Wish, likely to be a lot more money for the Lakers. According to Recode and Sports Business Journal, the San Francisco-based e-commerce company became the team's first jersey patch sponsor last season as part of a deal worth about $13 to $14 million per year, good enough to make it the fourth most valuable sponsorship of its kind across the league. Cleveland Cavaliers' deal with Goodyear received the most media value of all NBA jersey sponsors, an estimated $21 million in terms of earned media impressions on local media platforms. Though the Lakers deal should top this season, the Apex Marketing Group currently estimates that King James, now in Los Angeles, Wish may get as much as $35 million in exposure, blowing away the rest of the league. James's move exemplifies the trickle-down economics of signing a marquee player, as sponsors surrounding businesses and the community at large stand to benefit. It's been a busy week in sports. Certainly happy to have you with me. Happy to have thanked Jeff Williams, the mayor of Arlington, for donating his time and teaching us more about esports. Exciting next week about All-Star Weekend Caps Afterglow, end of the golf tournament, beginning of Carnoustie at the British Open, and clearly the end of Wimbledon. All of those issues front and center in a $1 trillion sports industry. And thank you for joining us next week as we go Beyond the Scoreboard.